Okay, so the question was, how can we obtain what the volume is for an item? So what we're going to do then is, we've got that, we'll trim that up. We'll trim that up. And now we've got our part that we can revolve around, which I've goofed because I don't need.
I was just gonna say you're gonna get a cylinder in the middle.
Yep. Didn't pay attention to that.
But
Okay.
then you need a construction line too. Okay, good.
Oh, you son of a potato. I swear I hate SolidWorks and how glitchy it is.
At the point I'm at in my surface modeling, every single command I give it, I save afterward. It's like loft command,
Yeah.
extrude command, or save, loft save.
My dad uses SolidWorks and he says it's a lot better than it used to be.
It is, and it depends on how many changes they make. But yeah, it used to be. It became the industry standard, but it was good because there was nothing else out there that competed. The other solid modeling was Autodesk, AutoCAD, and it really sucked. Okay, so we're just going to do this even simpler.
I couldn't imagine being back in the day and then just having this program crash all the time and you were just expected to like make stuff work.
Yep.
He was so happy when SolidWorks became parametric.
Yes, that was, yeah. And there was a lot of people, when parametrics first came out, they would not touch it because it messed things up or made it more complicated. So it took them a while to get it. What's going on?
That drove my dad nuts that they'd always release these with so many glitches.
Well, it's about every year we want to get something out. We want to have, yeah.
Well, if they made it perfect at first, what would they sell us next year?
Exactly.
Are there really that big of updates between each year?
No. Sometimes it's nothing more than graphical. Okay. So we've got our volume here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cheat. So in order to get the volume, you have to have a closed object. So I could get what the mass properties for this product are, but I want to have, I want to know what the liquid is going to be in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the surfaces. So I'm going to grab that surface and that surface. I'm basically going to copy it, so I'm not going to do an offset. And also, this is the way too, like if you want to render a bottle or a cup with liquid inside, this is how you do the liquid inside. Added bonus, in that case, you always have to have a little bit of an offset, like 0.0001, because you'll get this weird effect because Keyshot will try to render it, and there's two surfaces living in the exact same space. It doesn't know what to do. But let us hide that. We need to make, so again, it has to be a solid. It can't be surfaces. It has to be something that would hold liquid. So we'll just toss on a planar face here. We'll stitch it. There we go. So we've got that. Now let's see if I remember. Whoa, what? Oh, whoops. Create solid. There we go. Now let's see if I remember how to go for here. We are going to go. Do I have to make it a material? No, that's only to give me the things. Shoot. Where am I going to go here? There we go. Body properties. Was that on there, or did I have to? Okay, yes. So you do have to hit the down drag window, and then it shows up the body properties. You click on that. What one is it? Oh, no, I do need to assign something to it. So we're just going to assign a material. We're going to call it, there's water and everything in here, but we'll call it nickel. Now that's going to give me the weight and everything as well, which we don't need. We just want to know what the volume is. Why is this not doing what I want it to do? Okay, hold on. Oh, there we go. That's why. So under evaluate, so just ignore everything I just said. Under evaluate, go to mass properties. Well, if you want to actually give it a specific material so you know the weight. So this is what they do when they take a look and say how much is this going to cost to make. So here you've got your density, your mass weight in grams, your volume. Now, again, if you don't want cubic millimeters, you can go up to your settings and change it to what you want. Your center of mass, surface area, you know, your mass properties, how much does it weigh? Like here, this is the volume that it goes in. If we come in and hide that, and we show that, and let's come in here and go mass properties. So here it's got the mass, but it doesn't tell us the weight or how many grams. But the mass properties is 138.66 grams. If you know what the going rate for ABS plastic is per gram or per pound, that's how you figure out how much is your part going to cost in plastic. That was something I think it's always good for designers to know. I was taught at one point, I got challenged in feedback when I said I want to grow, and the engineering director said, well, why don't you start learning about how much your parts actually cost, so that when you do your designs, you know what you're costing, and if you want to pull material out, you know what you can do to keep that true form. So it gets really engineering-y, but I found that it helps because I can justify my designs, or I can support my designs better. You know, when they say, well, that's beautiful, that's going to cost a lot. It's like, well, no, it's not. This is how much material is in plastic it is in there, you know. And I can work with the engineers and speak their language as well. Does that answer the question, Evelina?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. I'm really long-winded today, so I apologize.
That's alright. I just gotta say, this is really cool.
Yeah.
To be able to find out the volume and whatnot, because I'm sure I'll run into an instance where I need something to be a certain, whatever.
Yep. Well, I don't know, do we have it here? Let me just see. And maybe that's, so in here you can do a whole
Are you
line of
recording
things.
this?
Yeah, this one I'm recording.
Perfect.
Maybe one class or next semester, I'll show you guys how to do FDA or FEA, which is finite element analysis. And basically what it is you can do it really quick and simple. I can make this ABS plastic. I can tell the software and say, look, I want to put, let me just go to side view here. I want a person to be able to stand on this. I'm going to apply 150 pounds force coming in this direction. I want to know, is this strong enough? It will calculate it and tell me, no, it will crush, it will break, or it will say, no, this is going to hold that weight, no problem. It may show, if I do it and I say, look, I'm going to have something right at the center. It's only going to be that much space and it's going to weigh 300 pounds. Is it going to break through the plastic? It will say yes or no. That's not normally something we as designers do, but it can be helpful if you're a consultant or if you're designing a part and you want to make sure it's strong enough so that when you present the design that someone says, I don't know, that looks flimsy. It's like, well, I did a very quick analysis and it works. I don't think I have it loaded here.
So are these tools that engineers use mainly, or is this stuff that designers are like?
Yeah, so primarily this would be an engineer's job. And they would do that. It also, because there's certain calculations that have to take place. I do it because I thought it was cool. So I learned enough to scratch the surface. The one thing, though, where designers can help is understanding real-world requirements. So I had to help a engineer one time understand, because they were doing the FEA, and they were like, "Oh yeah, this is perfectly strong enough." And well, actually at the time I was the design development manager, so the engineer reported to me, but I got promoted over him, so he was really not happy to have me tell him anything. But we were working on something, and there was a handle. Let's just say it was a cart like this. And we wanted to figure out how weak of a point was this. My concern was it was weak. Let's just say, because there was a heavy load here. So he did the FEA because he wanted to prove to me that his handle was fine, it wasn't going to break, nothing needed to be changed, he knew what he was doing, yada, yada, yada. What we would call a lack of intellectual honesty and humility. We always should accept that we know we may be wrong, therefore we should always listen to challenge. So we assumed that the amount of pressure, and I'm just going to make these numbers up, the amount of force being applied to that was going to be 65 pounds. So what we did is we said, okay, this is aluminum. This whole thing is one piece. There's wheels here. They're going like this. Person's going to stand here. That's really, really high. And you know what? Hold on. Because I need this to make it actually seem more logical, more legit. So our person was there, and they were going to push it. So he ran the diagnostics. Everything was beautiful, all blue and pretty. And he came back and said, I told you so. This is a level of refinement. When I was young, I wouldn't have taken the same approach. I said, that's great. That is a individual who is, shorter. And the cart isn't actually pushed at this point. The person...
Get downward force.
Exactly. Now, and it's not, the cart's not always simply going in this way. So you have a person who is applying force sometimes. How are they going to use this? This is where ethnography and immersion comes into place. I had to pull up the images that showed Dave, who was a 300-pound guy at a hospital, who was leaning on this while he was talking with someone, who also, because there was between doors a bump, pushed down on this cart. And I'm going to say that other people didn't do this because they were considerably smaller and the cart was heavy. He pushed down on this to pop it up over. So we applied the force in this direction, the force in this direction, and the force in this direction. 3 separate simulations. So this, the one pushing down was a separate simulation. This and this were one, and it still passed. Now, what we did was we applied the force to here for the average weight of a person sitting on it. So we applied, we'll say 45 pounds. Pressure of someone leaning on something. Passed, no problem. Well, when you pop this up, and this is where it comes handy with the engineers. If this weighs 200 pounds and you're applying this force in an arc motion like this, with the pivot point being down here because it's the back wheel, how much weight is applied to there? You know, so how much force is it actually? So we're going to say it was 90 pounds. We're going to say it was double that. Well, all of a sudden what happens, and this is actually the exact way it shows up. So it was all green here, and it was beautiful. All green here and beautiful because it was saying it had no problem with that force. Starts going yellow. And then it was all red in this area. And the neat thing too is it will actually show you the simulation. If you set the settings right, it'll show you the tear. So it showed that this part, that it snapped at this point first, which then caused the cascading effect. So for this design, we had to put a bend in the bar because that is stronger than the 90 degrees. And what we could have done from a visual standpoint, and this is where it's helpful for designers to know these things, if we said, you know what, I really like that look, that's the look I want, here's my handle, and I want this 90 degrees. Well, awesome. Back in here, hide a gusset. So that what it looked like in the end this is an underside view. Had a gusset. Now, after, and it took him some while, because this actually had a curve, as did this. Well, we had our weak point here. He said, well, even you'll tell me that that looks ugly. And I'm like, yeah, but we can do a gusset that looks like that on the center. You know, so it can be a design element. But you don't want it to be an afterthought. And when I say an afterthought, you want to have it thought out. That's why you want to work with the engineers because if something like that comes up, you want to be able to help modify things. And God forbid, this went to, let's say this didn't get caught in the prototype for some reason because we didn't utilize it the way, and it went to production and it got out there, and we had those failures. You have potentials for lawsuits. You're going to have to recall them all. You have to remake them. It's going to cost money out of your pocket that you can't recoup. There are companies out there that they've had to do recalls, and it's bankrupted them. So that's the fun of FDA. And you can see how all this, and I don't even have to know how to do the FDA, but having an understanding of these principles or learning from the engineers has helped to make me a stronger designer. So the next thing, if no one else has any more questions, the next is I will dive into, whose model is it? Who sent it to me? Who wanted me to look at their model?
I mean, I did, but I don't think it would be necessarily beneficial to anyone.
You're doing the Razor, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, I think it's beneficial because it's a quick. You've got one thing that you asked, which if I think I understand you, I'm going to say hell no, you screwed yourself. And the other is it's just beneficial for others to see the mating. That won't take long.
Okay.
But what I am going to do, I'll stop the recording.